Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Door to Door. I'm Virginia Stanley. Who's with me?
Chris Connolly here. Great to see everyone. Welcome.
And Lainey Mays, glad to be here.
So, the Library Love Fest team, we love a lot of stuff. We love librarians and we love good books and we love wonderful authors. And with us today is someone who we treasure. And we are so thrilled to have him with us today. We are celebrating Willy Vlautin. Willy Vlautin, welcome to Door to Door.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's always a pleasure to see your face, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, Willy, we are super excited because your book, The Night Always Comes, made the April Library Reads list. And when we found out this news, we were so thrilled. I mean, we just couldn't stop smiling and cheering and just being so thrilled for you because this book is, all of your books are so beautiful and have touched us in so many ways. You have, diehard fans within the library marketing team at HarperCollins, but beyond that as well, librarians have fully embraced you. And this is your sixth book. They are all so heartfelt, all each have a message. And we just can't speak highly enough about you as a writer and as a wonderful human. So we applaud you. I think we should take off, Chris and Lainey, we should take off our mics and just unmute ourselves and applaud because we literally applaud you. We are so thrilled for you.
Well, thank you. I mean, thank you so much. You're making me like myself, which is great. Thank you. So thank you very much.
Well, Chris, Lainey, yes, go ahead.
I love libraries, So it's, and that's one of the bad things among many of COVID is you can't go to libraries. So I'm hoping soon we'll get to go again. So this is really exciting for me. So thank you.
You're welcome. Well, librarians love you, boy. And we have librarians who are going to come on our door-to-door episode today. They have some questions for you. We have librarians who have written in questions. And of course, anybody else who's watching today, feel free, chime in with love, with questions, with anything you want to know about Willy. But before I turn it over, Chris, Lainey, anything you all want to say to Mr. Vlautin?
Oh, just thank you, Willy. Yeah, I mean, I remember reading Don't Skip Outing. It was the first time I'd read you, and it completely shook me, and you became immediately one of my favorite authors. And I read every single one of your books. They're all brilliant. And I'm excited for anyone who's discovering you through The Night Always Comes. I think it's a great entry point, but I think you can read any of your books and they are all so special. And yeah, I just thank you. It's
Oh man, thank you.
Congrats. You deserve all the reads, and I think you're going to get them. So
I concur, all of the above. And I was just, I mean, we're all here to gush, and I don't want to go on and on because I could. But, reading back through, I had read the book a while ago and reading, and it still, I didn't want to put it down. Like when you read a book for the second time, I think that's a really big accomplishment. So congratulations on Library Reads and all the people who will find it.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I always think of like when you write a book, it's like you put them in a little, I've said this before, but you put them in a little rowboat and you kind of push them out into the Pacific Ocean. You say, I hope you find a friend and you don't get eaten or you sink too fast and disappear into the world. So you guys are making my little boat not sink. And so thank you. And thank you for supporting the book.
Wow, that's a lovely way to put it. I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to pour your heart and soul into a book, and then you turn it over to the world. And as you say, Will, you hope that it meets a friend. Well,
yeah, it doesn't just like sink, 2 miles out. It's just like, oh, yeah, you do. You hope it finds its own life, and you can't really do anything about it. It has to find its own way, and you like them so much. You hope they do all right, but it is a big, I'm a little tugboat amongst tankers, and so you just hope you don't get run over. So thank you guys.
Well, you're a steamship. You're no tugboat.
Yeah, I should call you every day and get a little pep talk.
Well, we'll get right to it because we have so much to talk about. We want to talk about the book, and I know you're going to read a little bit and play a little music, but first we want to hear from some librarians. As I say, some have joined us here today, and we'll hear from them in a second. But here we are. Thank you, Lainey. This is the April 2021 list, and there you are, squarely sitting on that list of 10 books that librarians across the country have voted on, and rightly so, have picked this book to be sitting on this list. And we're absolutely thrilled. And this is Mary Robinson, and she put in her quote here. There are so many raves for this book, Willie. But I want to read this quote from Robin Bierbauer, your buddy, Robin Bierbauer, who is the president, the unofficial president of the unofficial Willy Vlautin fan club. And this is what Robin says. Willie, as your #1 fan, I'm very pleased you are getting the accolades and attention you deserve. It has been so much fun seeing new readers excited about your writing and flocking to your books. So excited to see the book on the Library Reads list. That's absolutely lovely.
Pretty amazing.
She's been a big fan. You guys have really connected.
Yeah, she's a real, like, amazing librarian. I mean, I think she's retired now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I first met her, you could just tell, like, she'd read so much and she loves audiobooks. And I mean, it was just so fun it's always fun to just meet someone that loves books, because you don't meet them every day. And so, like, me and Robin, you're like, you can just tell, like, she's got the book sickness. She loves books. And,
Yeah. Well, so our first online Zoom librarian is Jennifer Winberry from Hunterdon County Library. Jennifer, do you want to unmute and say hello to Willie? Can you? Yeah.
I did. Hi, Willie. It's nice to meet you again.
Nice to meet you.
And I want to thank Library Love Fest for giving me this opportunity. This is really awesome. I'm a little embarrassed to admit this is my first Willy Vlautin book, but I'm planning on going back and reading your backlist maybe through the summer. I think it'll be nice summer reads outside.
Don't do them all at once.
So our library just joined a consortium, and we're 49 libraries strong now. And we just started a readers advisory board. And the first book I recommended was your book for our first list. And I also included the link to Lynette's song. So I wanted to know, I love that it's set over just the 2 days, which to me, it gives it so much intensity. And Lynette, she never ever gives up hope. She keeps trying and trying and trying. Did you ever consider having Lynette take more than 2 days to try to settle all her debts and try to get this mortgage?
Before you answer that, Willie, can I just say I should have, for the 3 people out there who haven't read the book, given a brief description. So could you, before you answer Jennifer's question, sort of flesh out the framework of the book for those who have not yet had the joy of reading The Night Always Comes?
Well, I think in so many big cities in the West and everywhere across America, there's gentrification is happening and housing prices are going through the roof. I think here in Portland, Oregon, it was just such a dramatic thing. It's jaw-dropping how expensive it's gotten to live here in such a rapid time. And at the same time, it's getting more and more expensive, and they're building endless condos and big buildings are going up. There's tent cities appearing. And it just shocked me to the point where I started thinking, as a working class family, could you afford to buy a beat up little house that was made and built for working class people nowadays? And I started walking by, like, houses that I could have bought in 10, 15 years ago are now $400,000, $500,000. So it made me, so I think the story kind of started there. How can a dysfunctional kind of beat up family navigate gentrification? Because I think all families are carrying burdens and weights, as is Lynette's family. So it kind of started there, and it started with the panic, because it's so extreme, the rapid gentrification of Portland, just as one city, in Seattle, San Francisco, other cities, that you can just feel it like it's changing by the hour, it feels like almost. And so I wanted it that intense and fast. But I did, like I often do with novels, is I it's like the cartoon, I took a wrong turn in Albuquerque. Well, for a good year and a half, I wrote half of the novel where Lynette leaves afterwards. And so it takes place in two days and 2 nights. And then I did another 200 pages where it takes place in 1 year afterwards. And it was that part of a novel that kept me up at night. I started jogging. I quit drinking for 7 months. I did yoga. I used to take these long walks trying to like figure it out, and then I finally figured out it just wasn't good. And I've done this with half my novels where I just go down the wrong path and I can't figure it out. It's like the puzzle I can't figure out. So I had to cut it. And then I took some of those stories from that second half and put it in the first. And so it just became a novel really just about that intensity of knowing your family's dreams might fall through the cracks. And I was also interested in the idea of greed and like, how does greed look? Not among CEOs, like, not among rich people. If we believe that greed and capitalism is good and only that is the only answer, then how does that look in gentrification and among working class people? And so throughout the 2 days and 2 nights, I wanted Lynette to see all the different kinds of greed and opportunism as she's trying to navigate her family and believes still in community. And I think in the novel, she's one of the only people that still believes in community.
Thank you. I think the 2 nights really works. It drives the intensity, and you just want to keep reading and reading and reading. And yeah, so thank you very much.
Sure. Yeah, that wrong turn I took was a rough one, but I did that with my last novel, Don't Skip Out on Me. I took a wrong turn, and and it just takes a couple years to figure it out. And that's why I love writing novels, because it's not a performance. You can keep tinkering away. You don't have to be the smartest guy. You just have to not give up.
I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks so much and Willie for that wonderful, great Q&A. That was fabulous. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And for posting to your readers, and we'll talk about Lynette's Lament in a little bit, but Chris?
Yeah, so Andreen, if you don't mind unmuting and asking your question. I remember giving you Don't Skip Out on Me back when that first published, and I think that was your first book.
That was my first book.
Read by Willy Vlautin, which won you over. So thanks for coming back and being here with us. And yeah, please feel free to ask Willy your question.
Okay, so Willy, this is like just a fun question. Let's imagine an alternate world where you cannot choose writing or making music. What would you be doing instead? That's it.
Really? That's a good question. I think I always been kind of a little bit dented, and I think as a kid I was pretty dented, and so I got comfort from music and movies and books, and disappearing into them so much, and used them as crutches. And I think I started writing just to kind of live in a different world, and music as well. You can disappear into a 3-minute song, and it kind of transports you. So to be honest, I've never thought much about what I would do. If I was really cool, I'd love to own a big ranch, but you have to be a rich guy to own a big ranch. But to live out in the middle of nowhere and have a big ranch would be nice. I'd like to be good at something. Like I always wanted to be an electrician, because I was a house painter for years, and the king of the trades is the electrician. So I would have probably been an electrician if I could have figured it out. Other than that, boy, that's really interesting, because I never really thought about it. I have really bad jobs. I would love to have worked on a tugboat, because you could just be on the water and stuff like that. But I never, I never really thought about it as much in terms of what I would do, because I think I was always just trying to duct tape my way through my life, and it's been music and novels that have kind of saved my life. But thank you. Now all day long, I'm gonna start thinking about what I should have done and what I could have done. But I'm just not there. You know, the one other one is I would have loved to have been a veterinarian. You know, when I was a kid, I worked at a veterinarian hospital for years, but I just, you know, I was so bad at school, and I've never been a good math guy. But I would like to be like a really cool vet. That would be nice. But now we're just getting into the straight up dream territory because, you know, I pretty much had to cheat my way through math. So I don't think I would have been much of a vet.
Thank you, Willie. I love your answers. So it's
Oh,
a
thank
lot to think about. Thank you.
San Pedro. And remember the Minutemen.
I will.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that great question. I think what we're going to do now, Chris, do we have a little, so go ahead, Chris, you want to talk about Lynette's Lament?
Yeah, so, and this is something we'll talk about a little bit later, but if you're unfamiliar with Willie's work, there's often music and the work are tied together always, and you were kind enough to share Lynette's Lament, which is a song that was written by Corey Gray, who's in the Librarians, correct, Willie? That's right, he's a bandmate in the Librarians. So this is an instrumental song called Lynette's Lament, which you shared with us. This is part of the upcoming book soundtrack for The Night Always Comes. So I'll play that very quickly here.
That is so haunting and beautiful. It's absolutely lovely. Chris, can you share the card this is a card that Chris made that features 4 starred reviews from the trades, which if you tie that music in and you look at these quotes, that's just some of the praise for this book. It is evocative and haunting, and this character Lynette, it is a lament. You know, she's trying so hard to make her way and to own a piece of to have stability, to put roots down and have them be hers. And this book is it's so haunting and atmospheric, as is that music. And it's just touched so many people who have read it, as you can see by these quotes and by the librarians who are here today with us, either on Zoom or have written in questions. But you need to sit with this. You need to sit with this book. It's just so wonderful. That's so wonderful. I envy anybody, like Lady says, envy anybody who's reading it for the first time.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that too about Lynette, because listening to that music, it just took me back, because she's somebody who has a lot of issues and she's blamed for a lot of other people's issues, and she's just trying to get a a foothold on anything she can call her own, and that music just really, it brings you there for those 2 days. And so I want to pass it to Bill Kelly so he can unmute and ask you a question. I know you guys had a musical connection before we got on, so can't wait.
Thanks. Hey, Willie. And as Virginia said, Lynette is such a terrific, memorable, sympathetic character. And all your books have these exquisitely rendered characters that seem drawn from maybe the accumulation of this minute detail, whether it's a mannerism or a gesture, that seems to kind of articulate a nonverbal on the page, but really fleshes out the characters. So I was wondering, how much of your character development do you attribute to just your keen observation of these quirks and tics of human behavior, and then translating them into these characters?
Wow, is that your dog?
Yeah.
What kind of dog you have?
A Canadian Shepherd.
Canadian Shepherd.
Yeah.
All right, I'll look that up. I don't, yeah. I love dogs, by the way. I think, first, when I write a draft, like I'll think about Lynette. I thought about her, maybe that story for maybe a year before I kind of got rolling on it. And then maybe over a cup of coffee, I could tell you the basic story of it. And then I'll write it out. And that'll take I'm pretty fast at that. I can do that in under a year. And then it just starts unfolding as one, like I always equate it to like buying a car that doesn't start. Like you buy the car, like I finished the draft and then I got to spend years trying to get it to start. And so when I do that, each edit, the only thing I have going for me, I think as a writer, is I love to edit and tinker. And so each time I go through it, you start getting to know Lynette better. And then the little mannerisms come from that. Because I'm not a great lyrical writer, like we'll say like William Kennedy, who wrote one of my favorite books, Ironweed. He can just play with language. Or musically, Tom Waits, he can play with words. Like Bob Dylan can play with words. For me, I just have to pick my battles. And so I always try to think of exact little things that'll make sense to the reader and to me. And I think I get those by just editing and going through, because you start get to know the characters better. And also I think I always could try to write a little bit with blood, and the fact, like, not that Lynette is me, but the ideas behind Lynette are ideas that I struggle with as well. And so that starts kind of gives you the energy to go back through the book time and time again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of those songwriters, and of course, you're a highly acclaimed songwriter as well. So just as a follow-up question, how does learning to tell a story in that 3-4 minutes, kind of developing a character in a song, and that economy of scale, how does that translate to a novel? I mean, does that help with the character development when you're writing prose?
Well, when I was a kid, I started writing songs like 11 or 12, like obsessive, like kind of obsessively. And as a side note, I have absolutely no talent. I just really loved disappearing into songs more than anything, because it was like you could get out of your life for 3 minutes. And so, but I was trying to write, there was a band called X. They were a kind of a punk rock band out of Los Angeles, but a really kind of literary, really smart. But they wrote really catchy titles like The Phone's Off the Hook, but You're Not, The World's a Mess, It's in My Kiss. These really catchy lines, and I'd stay up all night trying to come up with these catchy lines, and I could never come up with the catchy lines. And then I started listening to more just story songs, and I started writing stories at 17, 18. I started writing stories, and when I started writing stories, I said, well, forget being catchy. I'm just going to write the story in a 3-minute, like a poem. And so that's kind of how my stories and my songs became like together as one. I would write I'd write the poem version, the song version, and then I would write, a 20-page or a 60-page or a 300-page version in a novel form. The problem is in my early 20s, I forgot that people need to listen to music for enjoyment. And so like my band, Willy Vlautin, in the early days, they'd go, can't you put in a chorus once in a while? can't you put in some kind of hook? Why does it have to be 8 verses? And I say, but the story won't make sense. You know, I was so dead set on the story that I forgot that, you know, people need to enjoy the music or listen to it or get something out of it. You can't, it's just not there to tell the story. And only when the guys would practically throw me out of a window and revolt. And then I would go, oh, I better write a catchy song for, or as catchy as I could. So those guys would leave me alone. So the next time I bring in a 7-minute song with no chorus and you know, 3 pages of verses, they won't leave me, you know? So they've always kind of work together. And the other thing is, like, I might write a song about, like I wrote a song called 43 that was based on one of the characters in The Free. And it was kind of the first idea I had into thinking about those ideas of The Free. And then I wrote another song about the nurse character without really thinking I was going to write that novel. So they kind of sometimes start a novel. They'll start the idea. That happened with Northline as well, where I just started thinking about these ideas, and the ideas oftentimes will stop when you write a song, you finish the song and that idea is done. And then sometimes it just opens up the idea. And in a lot of my novels, like Don't Skip Out on Me was that case as well, where you write a song and you're like, oh, you know, I have to explore these ideas a lot deeper than in a 3-minute song.
That's great. Thank you.
And I love your library. That's really cool looking.
Thank you.
Bill's private library. Thanks, Bill.
No, I want that private library.
For sure. And the last librarian that we have joining Zoom, and then we have lots of questions to get to online. We have a lot to get to. Lillian Dabney. Hello, Lillian. How are you? You can unmute yourself.
Hello, thank you so much for doing this and giving us an opportunity to connect with Willy. Willy, I don't know if you remember, we met at Elliott Bay when you were on tour for Don't Skip Out on Me. You may not remember.
I do.
It's okay if you don't.
Yeah, in the basement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, that's great.
Yeah, so hello.
And we're almost through the rain, right?
Yes.
Getting close. It's
Yeah.
raining today, but it's been so nice. I'm getting really antsy for some decent weather. So
Soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a question about Lynette again, because she really is the core of this book. I mean, everything is about her. And I wondered, did she change at all from the beginning to the end of the novel? Did she do anything unanticipated or unexpected? Did she change anyway? And did she change you in any way during the writing of the novel?
well, I think I was interested in the idea of what people do when they're pushed to the limit, when they feel powerless. Some people implode and some people explode. And I think men and women respond to the powerlessness different. But with her, I was interested in the idea that she has basically been raised as like an indentured servant to her brother and put in a really hard role as a caregiver from an early age. And I think she never got to be a kid really. And so I think there's a rage in her that it took me a while to figure out because I'm not as angst filled as her. And I wasn't in that situation. So for that, I had to figure that out, which took me a while. And that idea of like, she doesn't really understand how to love. And so when she meets Jack, her boyfriend, she's trying to play a part and she can't admit who she is. And you can't play a part and survive, especially someone that's carrying a lot of baggage like her. So I felt like I understood her because I relate a lot to it. I think as I worked on it more and more, she got less angry and more just kind of, she was trying to make up for the sins she thought she'd committed and the hardships she thought she was giving her mother when really she was just put in a bad situation and was trying to do the best she can. So I think at first she was a lot angrier. And then the more I got into it and tried to think about it, she just got more beat up, maybe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And she didn't affect you in any way during the writing. I mean, work on your heartstrings or?
Oh yeah, the scene with her boyfriend Jack used to be, was like 50 pages at one point, and it broke, that part broke me down. I was also interested in like that her and her mother, they're kind of linked together, and they're codependent, and they've relied on each other for so long. And I think throughout the novel you see that the mother's trying to break up with the daughter. The mother's just trying to like move on from their relationship, and that was heartbreaking. So Jack was really heartbreaking for me and messed my head up. And the codependency of Lynette and her mom Doreen took a lot to figure out, because they don't like each other, but they rely on each other. They come from different. They both damaged each other a lot, but they haven't been able to quite quit themselves. And like Lynette's a pleaser, and she was raised to be a pleaser, and so I think she's still trying to please her mother, and she doesn't realize that her mother's just breaking up with her, and that was rough. So yeah, it was a rough. But the weird thing is like when I write about rough subjects, it calms me down. It's like, when you're anxious about something, you're worried that something bad's going to happen, and it eats at you. But when I'm writing in a world that actually bad things are happening, it's almost like that anxiousness disappears from my own life. And then you can kind of hold Lynette's hand as you go along. And even though you're putting her in bad situations, I mean, this sounds crazy, but it eases my mind. And then I can explore these issues of, gentrification and the struggles of Lynette's ability to accept love and her relationship with her brother and her mother. They're all things I find interesting, and they ease my, even though they're difficult, it eases my mind to write about.
Yeah, that's wonderful. The relationship with Lynette and her mother is powerful. I just want to say that it is powerful, and you did a stunning job with that. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was a tough one, because I wanted to start the novel. With a really lengthy, like one of those weird conversations you get in with only family, where you can throw a lot of little daggers out, but instead of leaving the room in a huff, you kind of keep playing the game. And some relationships are like that, where people are just kind of like hurting each other, but it's real done skillfully and subtly. And so it just kind of ebbs and flows in and out of like kind of being sweet and mean and cruel. And I was interested in that. I didn't know if other people would be, but I wanted to start it off with that idea. And the idea of like with Lynette, she hasn't given up on community and the dream of success. And I think the mom, when we meet the mom, she's just given up. She's like, the only answer is to take as much as you can get and not worry about anybody else. And Lynette says that's really short-sighted. And we have to think about community. And I think throughout the novel, you start seeing people that are just looking out for themselves at that moment, not seeing down the road. Like that we have to watch out for the, massive gentrification and greed. And you can't be short-sighted, because it'll come and bite you eventually.
Yeah. Well, it's fabulous. And the music is evocative of this cover. I mean, you listen to the music and you look at the cover and you're just there. So thank you, Willy.
Todd Hito's the photographer, and he's amazing. It's the coolest book I've ever. I mean, I look not that I barely like myself on a good day, but I'll look at that book and I just think, guys, it's so beautiful. And yeah, so I'm in this band, the DeLines, and we do a lot of like country soul ballads. And it's a woman singer named Amy Boone, and she sings like Lynette would sing if Lynette sang. And then Corey brought in he's a trumpet player, and he brought in that tune, and I was like, that's Lynette driving around. And I was like, can I name it? Please let me name it. And now we're doing a whole record of those kinds of songs. And I wrote some of them, and he wrote some of them, and hopefully for the paperback we'll put them with it. So
yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you, Willy.
Thank you.
That was great. Yeah, and that conversation with Lynette and her mom, with when at the very beginning with that car, you feel so much for Lynette. That's just such a hard conversation, but so beautiful. I agree. That was great, Lillian. And you have something to read for us, I think.
Yeah,
You
I
want to
can
do a little
read
bit?
a little section from that. I've always been interested, and I've met a lot of people in my life that are like this. Is like when your back's against the wall, and sometimes just buying something that makes you feel good in the moment takes the edge off you. And I think in some ways, Lynette's mom buying the car is like that. She feels so hopeless that she's like, why can't I have something nice and show off something nice? Obviously, it's deeper than that, but this is that little section. So this is Lynette, who just gets off work, and she comes home and sees this new car in the carport. Do you mind if I turn up the heat, at least for a little bit? I can't seem to get warm today. Sure, their mother said. Lynette turned up the thermostat to 68. So whose car is that? It's really nice. Is it Cheryl's? Did yours break down? Their mother had the cigarette in her left hand and kept her right hand around Kenny's wrist. Kenny's the brother. Her eyes were on the TV, and her voice came out so quiet it was barely audible. It's mine, Lynette laughed. It's yours? Yeah, I bet. Their mother's voice grew louder, but now it was shaking. I bought it. Lynette looked at her suddenly worried. What do you mean you bought it? You mean you bought a car today? While I was gone, you didn't go to work like you said. You bought a brand new car? How much was it? It was a good deal. How much? With everything and the better warranty, $39,000. Lynette sat on a wooden chair next to the front door. She covered her face with her hands, and her heart began racing. I'm really confused. We're supposed to sign the papers on the house next week. Is it going to screw up the loan? Did you think about the loan? So that's just a little bit of Lynette and her mother about ready to try to navigate what's going on.
Man, that's such a lady. We were just saying that's amazing how that just sort of segued so naturally between your conversation between Lillian, and then we didn't know you were going to read that section. That's so cool. Very powerful between those two, and so much is on Lynette's shoulders, you know. I just want to read this quick quote from PW, and then we're going to get to some of the quotes. Some of the questions. So Publishers Weekly calls this a stunning, heartbreaking study of one woman's struggle against fate and circumstance in an America that's left her behind. There's I can't think of a better way to describe what this is. And I don't want to give anything away, but I love her. I love her strength. I even love her struggle because she's got so much grit, you know. She's not going to give up, and we will give nothing away but to say that you know, it's just a wonderful character study. And I think what's resonating with everybody who's read this and saying, oh, I wish I could read this for the first time, is that these characters are so fully fleshed out and real. They're not pretty, but they are real. And they're really up against stuff. And you're totally right. You know, when your back's up against the wall, there's a little release in buying something. There's something about like, I own this now. It's really, really great. Really great, Willie. So now, Start reviews. You saw them before. Publishers Weekly, Library Journal, Book List, Kirkus, all start. Because you are a star, Willie. Let's get to some questions. You guys.
Club.
What's that?
You should have like be a nightclub MC, like a really classy joint, you know?
Yeah, that's me. That's exactly me. All right. All right. So we're all gonna hop in with some questions now. Who wants to go first? Let's see. Do we have a place to start? Well, I'll give you Janet Lockhart, who is the former collection development librarian, retired from Wake County Public Library. Big fan, big contributor to Early Words Galley Chat. It's a quote. It's not a question. It's a comment. Your characters, right, are so compellingly written. They rise off the page and march straight into the reader's heart. Oh my God, so true. I am so pleased that The Night Always Comes is an April Library Reads pick and that librarians everywhere will have the chance to introduce readers to Lynette, who is so brave and so vulnerable and so resourceful. Yes, Janet. Oh my God. I just want to get like t-shirts that say Lynette. Okay, so that's wonderful. She is wonderful. Okay. Do we have questions in the chat room as we continue? And Chris, do you want to talk about the reading group guide?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'll start with the reading group guide. So we have a few resources. Obviously, this is to celebrate The Night Always Comes, but as we mentioned, this is your 6th novel, Willy, your previous 5, all brilliant. So we do have this little visual guide. If for those of you who want to dive in to previous books, do it. Seriously, do it. We'll share the link to this. It's in sequential order, as it should be. Yeah, so we'll share that in the chat. And then also Amy Baker, Willy's editor, wrote up a great guide just with some further tips, insights into each work, how they relate to each other, what you might find depending on which one you pick up. So that's another fantastic thing that we'll share in the chat and in the comments, so you all can use that. So that's 2 housekeeping notes. As far as questions in Facebook, so much love. Goes without saying. Let me see if we have questions. I know we do.
We do have our write-ins. Lady, do you want to read Daryl's since they're prepared, and then we'll go to the.
Sure. So Daryl Maxwell from Los Angeles Public Library, you did a great, Willy, I know you did an interview for the blog that's going to be coming out in April, and I read it, it was really wonderful. So we'll share that link when it's available with everyone. And I think Daryl has a question about gentrification, which does have such a big part of the book. He said, the tension you describe in the book between longtime residents in a neighborhood and those desiring to develop that same neighborhood and move it financially out of the current residents' reach is a nationwide problem. Do you have any ideas how these seemingly conflicting perspectives can be balanced?
You know, I wish I knew. I think where I'm at is just, I just am so shocked by it. I mean, obviously affordable housing is something they always talk about, but you very seldom see. In Portland, they talk about affordable housing endlessly, but they always kind of, it never seems to come to fruition. But I guess where I'm at right now is just, you know, you drive through downtown Portland and you'll see, I used to count cranes, and each crane is like a new big building going up. And there would be, you know, for the last couple of years, there'll be like 12 or 13 cranes going at one time, pre-COVID, you know, where they're just building huge buildings. And this little neighborhood I'm in is St. John's, and you're watching how like all the mom and pop shops are selling out to big, to who knows, developers. And right next door, there's a new condominium development being built. And there was one just down the next block, and there's 2 behind me that have gone up in the last 4 years. And at the same time, the little 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom houses that were for all the workers in this area, because it's a real working class area, they're suddenly quadrupled in price in the last 15 years. And so I think I'm more just in a state of shock about it. And you know, unlike like Los Angeles, it was had to struggle with a massive homelessness problem for years and years. I think Portland's is just exploding in it, and that again is shocking. You know, to drive down the street and see that there's tents and guys, you know, barbecuing in a drum on the sidewalk, where, you know, 4 years ago it wasn't. So I guess I'm just at a state of of shock about it. And so that, I think Lynette is too. And the sad thing about gentrification is some people can navigate it and some people can't. And I think Lynette's on that edge. She isn't brilliant. She's a blue collar worker that works 2 jobs legally and 1 illegally to try to navigate a place that's grown exceedingly expensive. And you know, in Portland, the housing prices have gone up 4, almost 5 times to the wages have only gone up once. So that's hard to combat. So I guess I'm just shocked, and sadly I don't have a lot of answers.
Thanks for that, Willie. We have a question from our friend Vicky Nesting. Before I get to that, though, I did see a comment from the HarperCollins page. Jacob Steele says, "Thank you for this interview. I am a huge fan of Vlautin's writing, and as a songwriter, he is truly one of the best original storytelling songwriters of all time." So
Wow.
there you go for a Thursday, Willie. That's
I wonder how much money I owe that guy.
Now, that's from the heart. That's free. So our question from Vicky Nesting is, so a number of different characters in the book articulate some very complex opinions / thoughts about the economy, gentrification, and their own situations. Were these characters channeling your own opinions, or had you gathered some of these thoughts from people in the Portland area?
I mean, it varies. You know, I've you know, a couple of characters I wanted to talk about the old money of Portland, and then the high tech money, and I also wanted to talk about like Lynette's dad, who's a house painter, and I was a house painter for years. And you would work with guys like that, like he's already been pushed out of his rental home, and so he lives in a worse apartment in a bad part of a suburb of Portland, but he's excited because he's getting to charge more and more prices for jobs because there are so much construction going on, that he's excited because he's getting jobs left and right and he can charge more and more, and he's hiring illegal guys to help him do it. And so he's making a lot of money, and instead of being scared and horrified that the prices have gone up so much, he's like, well, I'll live in a dump because I'm making so much money that now I can buy a boat. And so he's just, I think that there's a large segment in the book about the short-sightedness of it and just kind of grabbing for what you can grab for. It's a cynical book, I give you that in that regard. I think I was interested in the idea that our last president said, which is the point is you can't be too greedy. And I started thinking about greed and capitalism in that regard. So it was kind of a dark book in that point. But I think the only one I really align with in this book personally is Lynette. I think the dad's interesting. And I think Rodney, the repo man, she meets at the end. I think his viewpoints are interesting. But really my pal in this book is Lynette. And I think I understand her mom. I think I know a lot of people that just get beat up to the point they give up. And I think that's what happened to the mom. I don't think the mom's that bad a person. I think she's just tired and you know, is not at her best anymore. And I don't think she feels all that good either. So
I just have to say, Rodney, that was such a brilliant and interesting character. I've been thinking about that recently, just that relationship with Rodney being a repo man, and of course Lynette's mom and her decisions she makes, and how differently they, you know, that situation is approached. Just really, really good. But I won't spoil anything more for those who haven't read it. But
I'm always interested in the ideas of when people talk about, you know, being a true American and like you know, I pay my bills and I do this and I'm this tough guy. And but then you find out he's as sly and as shifty as anyone. And Lynette finds that out. He stands on a soapbox saying he's one thing, and then she finds out he says something else. Yeah.
Wow. So Kim McGee, Lake Travis Community Library, she started off with just a comment. She said, I hope Willie knows how much love and respect we all have for him and his writing, and I will continue to sing his praises. She had sent us an earlier quote, and in that she said, his succinct prose aims for the heart and characters stay in your soul. I love that so much. And she had asked a couple of questions about music, which I think we might have already answered, but it's interesting because everybody wants to know if you pursued music or writing at a young age and which one was first, and then how that writing process goes. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that. I think we did talk about it.
I mean, I think I started with music because I was so insecure about my intellectual ability. I always thought if you were a writer, you had to be brilliant. You had to come from a family that was kind of brilliant, and you'd had to have done something. So, I always thought like if you were going to be a writer, you had to live like James Bond, or you had to have been kidnapped, or you had to have gone to Stanford as a kid. That you had to do something great. And so I don't think I understood that I had a right to work on a novel or think that I could write a novel. But anybody with a friend in a basement or a room can be in a band. And so that's what I did. And then when I read Raymond Carver, I think I was 17, 18, somewhere in there. And he wrote about failed men really well, I thought, and not dramatic failed men, not like these hobo adventurers, but just kind of guys that would get fired and just not amount to much, and stories where the women carry the family and take the burden of being the leader. And I understand that world a lot. And when I read those kind of stories, I said, well, I didn't know you could write about those kind of people. And so it was that and reading Steinbeck as a kid that finally gave me the courage to do it. I think in general, I would probably be a novelist more than anything, because I was petrified of being in public, and I could barely go to high school because I was so shy. So the idea of me in a band and being the front man of a band in a way, it saved my life, but it's never felt natural. And I think that's why, as I've gotten older, I'm in a band where I hide in the back. Because as you get older, you start saying, well, I better figure out the things I want to do in life and better start doing them because I don't have that much longer. So I think I always wanted to write stories. I just didn't think I was allowed to.
I think you're going to be around for quite some time.
I hope
Better
so.
be.
I hope we all.
Yeah. So there have been lots of questions online. Janet Lockhart, who sent in that lovely quote before, is talking lots of talk online about the haunting music and how beautiful it is. She says she'd love to see a film version of this novel. And segueing into that is a question from Stephen Sposato from Chicago Public Library, who wants to know what's your favorite movie that's been made from one of your books.
I mean, they made two, and
Yep.
I love them both for different reasons. The Motel Life I love because it's shot in my hometown of Reno, and it was shot in all the places in the book that they could get in, and a few of those places no longer exist. And just like looking back in time, I've watched that movie quite a bit, only for the reasons of just like wanting to be in that era of Reno. So sentimentally, I love that movie because I get to see so many of the places I love. Because I always loved Reno. I mean, Reno was always my favorite place. And then Lean on Pete, I love because Andrew Haig, the director, was such a cool guy to me and such a smart guy. And a pleasure to deal with, and I admire what he does. And I don't feel like I'm smart enough or strong enough to navigate the movie world, and so I just have to trust. And I got lucky, and I trusted a really cool guy who was a pleasure to be around, and has now become a friend. So they've both been fun, and really, I mean, if you don't take it seriously, it's a laugh. You get some free dinners out of it. I paid off my house. My novel addiction can stay afloat for a little bit. So if you don't take it seriously, and then it can be a lot of fun.
Well, as someone who has seen those movies, I can attest that they are you know, not many times a movie and a book can line up, but
True.
pretty wonderful. Also, Steven Sposato wants to know, how do you manage to be so stinking cool?
I wish I was cool. Well, thank you for saying that. You know, I'm, you know, like just looking at myself in the Zoom camera is enough for me for a month. So thanks for saying I'm cool.
You are cool. You are cool. So Chris, Laney, we have more questions in the chat room. Do we have time to go on for just a little bit longer?
Sure, let's see. So I have a question here from Sylvia Chipka Bunani. I'm sorry, Sylvia, if I mispronounced that. She says, I'm curious how the pandemic has affected your writing process, positive or otherwise.
I mean, for me, and I hate saying this because it's been such an awful time for most of us. It's as long as I've been home in 20 years, I've gotten to see the fall and spring and the entirety, which I never have in 20 years. And I've gotten to work on one project without stopping and pulling off and going on the road. So for me, it's heaven. Because you know, I get to write every day and work on one project. So I've done pretty good. I did a draft of a novel and tinkered on another one. So it's been really fun. I know the anxiety level of COVID and everybody unemployed, and it's an apocalyptic time for musicians. And restaurant workers, and so many musicians are restaurant workers part-time. So it's really, I feel awful for all my musician friends that are struggling. But for me, just to get to stay home and work on a project has been heaven. I got a new dog, and that's heaven. So I can't complain. Yeah, can't complain.
Nice. Janet Lockhart wants to know if you've ever written any poetry.
No, you know, I used to take night classes at the University of Nevada, Reno, in my 20s, and I took fiction classes from a really great poet named Gail Marie Pallmeyer. She's the poet laureate of Nevada, or has been. I don't know if it's a lifelong thing for her, but she kept trying me to take her poetry class, and you know, I think that I was always I didn't understand it because I just wrote song lyrics. And so I think I was like a bonehead kid is. You're like, I don't want to write poetry because I write song lyrics. And maybe if I start writing poetry, I'll start writing weird lyrics. And I don't want to write weird lyrics. I want to just write the lyrics I want. So I think I just didn't understand it, and I was kind of scared of it. So I've never really written poetry. I've probably written 20 poems in my life, and none of them very good. And usually I'll just cannibalize them for song lyrics. So I've always just written song lyrics.
And I just want to note, I think you made like many people happy hearing about books, not just one book, but multiple books apparently that you're working on. So that's amazing. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing
I'm
that.
always tinkering. I'm always tinkering on something.
Speaking of multiple books, can we show the Willy's backlist, Chris? That you have made this wonderful. Chris, do you want to talk to this? Because it's fabulous.
Yeah, sure. And I think Lainey is controlling the photo. We'll share this. I think we gave you a little peek earlier. So again, we have 6 novels now for you all to jump back and read one by one. So these are just notes about like the overall story, starting with Motel Life, then Northline, then Lean on Pete, and then The Free, and then Don't Skip Out on Me, and then of course here we are with The Night Always Comes. So yeah, I think again there's so much connective. These are all unmistakably Willy Vlautin novels, so you are going to adore them, I guarantee it. And then we have an Edelweiss catalog, which is there at the bottom. So we're sharing a lot with you, but again, this will all be in the chat, so you don't have to go running around looking for stuff. It's all there, so you can dive into the backlist because it's again so worth it. And we talk about being, jealous of people just reading The Night Always Comes for the first time. I'm jealous of people who can just read the backlist for the first time. It's just, I read them all. I can't say that about many authors, but I've read every single one of your books, Willie. Thank you for every single one of them. Tears and all.
I'll try my-
Tears and all. Right. I'm in that Willy Vlautin fan club as well, as is Lainey. We've read them all. I don't know. There. I mean, if I were a mother, I guess I'd say that all my children are special. But these are some really, really beautiful books, and you've changed us all with them. So, we have, as Chris said, we've got the reading group guide. There's an Edelweiss catalog. There's so much stuff here. We're at a little bit over an hour now. I think we've gotten to most of the questions. I think you can pretty much see how much love there is for you in the books. And I think, unless I'm forgetting anything, because we have a list. The podcast. Lane, you want to talk about the podcast real quick, and then Willie could sing us a song.
Yeah.
Bye.
Well, we got to call you and tell you about the library reads pick, so that was really fun for all of us. And anytime we get to talk to you, it's just a fun time. But you guys can go and hear us tell you the big news on our podcast, and I put that in the chat, but I'll put it again so it comes up quickly.
Yeah, so there we are. I think, Chris, Laney, is there anything we're leaving out before Willie takes us out with a song? I don't want to forget anything. And we've packed a lot in here.
Oh, I mean, I'll just mention I will share the link to the Don't Skip Out on Me playlist as well,
yes.
because that's an all-time brilliant album on its own or with the book, doesn't matter. I mean, it all matters, but I do want everyone to give that a listen, prepare yourself for when you can listen to the full soundtrack for The Night Always Comes.
Oh my God, that Don't Skip Out on Me. I play that in the car, and it is just, don't skip out. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah,
What's your favorite song from that album, Willie?
Well, the instrumental record is my favorite. It's the only record of mine that I can listen to because my voice isn't on it and I'm not criticizing the lyrics. And I'm a huge pedal steel fan, and I wrote it as a pedal steel record for our pedal steel player Paul Brainerd. And so it's my favorite record, and it was crazy because we kind of retired. We'd been together 23 years, and we retired. And then the second we kind of called it, I called those guys up and I said, so now that we're retired, can we finally do a pedal steel record? Because I was the only guy that we really wanted to do an instrumental pedal steel record. And they said, sure. And I had the songs, and then we rehearsed harder than we'd rehearsed in years. And then we knocked it out. And then we went into the studio, and there was a snowstorm while we were loading in, and we got snowed in at the studio, and we knocked out the majority of the recording in one night. And it was really fun. And so it's my best, probably my favorite record I've been a part of. And I do think it fits the book, and each big thing that happens in Don't Skip Out on Me has a song. And so it was really fun for me. And like I said, it's the only record that I'll listen to and not want to jump out of a window. Like if I'm at a party and I hear my voice, I'll literally, like a dog hearing fireworks, I'm like, get me out of here. So, and that record just makes me feel good. So.
It's a great album. What did you ask, Chris? What's Willie's favorite? What did you ask him?
Oh, I just asked what his favorite song was, but I think that album as a whole, that'd be hard to choose.
My favorite one on the instrumental record is Meeting Billy in El Paso. We hired a professional, like a really hot shot harmonica player. And usually the harmonica players are just musicians you meet to play harmonica, but this guy, he's a genius. And he came in and knocked it out. And I felt like we were in a 70s movie, like an old, like John Huston movie towards the end, like Fat City or one of those kind of movies. I really felt like we were in it, and it was really fun. So that's always been one of my most favorite songs I've ever written, Meeting Billy in El Paso.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I just played the beginning here just for a moment, and I brought back the entire song just rushing through my mind. So it's really good.
Yeah, once in a while you write a song that you feel like, oh, I like this one, and it doesn't happen very often, but you feel lucky that, oh man, at least I wrote this song. Maybe I didn't amount to much, but at least I wrote this one, and that song always felt like that to me. Yeah.
That's fabulous. So Chris is going to keep that in the put the Spotify link in, right, Chris?
Yep, it's there in the comments, everyone. So do check
That's
that out.
awesome. Thank you, Chris. So I think we're pretty good. I think we got everything in. Librarians who are on the Zoom, thank you. Librarians who wrote in questions here or ahead of time, thank you. Willy Vlautin, thank you for this book, The Night Always Comes, on sale April 6th. We envy anyone who gets to read it for the first time. And the same can be said for your backlist. It haunting, beautiful, and real. And congratulations on making the list. And I think you're going to play a song for us, Willy. Take us out.
Yeah, I wrote one tune. Well, first off, thank you, Virginia, and it's been just a pleasure being with Harper, and you guys are so damn cool. And so I'll leave it. I only really wrote one or two songs with lyrics for Lynette. Usually you spend so much. I spend so much time editing them and thinking about them that I usually write a lot more songs. But I think because Lynette is it was such an intense book and so fast that I didn't think about her in anything but like in kind of crisis mode. And so, but this is one I wrote when I was thinking about her living with her first boyfriend. And so here we go. And I don't know if you can see, I got a guitar here, but I haven't really figured out the whole Zoom thing that well. So, all right. Why always thought there'd come a time when I'd stop waking up lonely. Every morning just before I open up my eyes, I'm certain that I've escaped. It doesn't matter who I wake up next to. If I sleep 10 hours or only 2, it's there to haunt me. Oh, I always thought there'd come a day when I'd stop waking up lonely. Just a little song there.
Little song of love, big heart. Willy, we're raising a glass to you until we can get together and raise a glass in real life.
I can't wait for that. I can't wait till we all get to go see shows and sit in the movies together and bookshop, hit the bookstores and like hang out. Yeah, you know, I dream about that. And thanks to all the librarians. I love libraries. If I could be a rich man, thinking about the question, I would buy the library in Reno, Nevada. The downtown library is the best, coolest library of all time. And I'd just buy it and I'd live in a little room up. They have this little kind of office up top, and that's where I'd live. So that would be my main goal in life, is to have enough money to buy the Reno Library. So there you go. So all librarians should go to that downtown branch of the Reno Library. It's just gorgeous.
I love it. I love it. Zoomers, you want to come back on and say goodbye? Just unmute yourselves and we'll raise a real glass or an imaginary glass. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for coming. Chris, Lainey, unmute yourself. Let's see our all faces. And Willie, congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you for making it happen and being so nice to me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Well, it's our pleasure. It truly is. It's our honor and our pleasure. And go forth, everyone. Willie, here's to you.
Hey, look at you. Yeah, you're East Coast.
Yeah.
We should toast Amy Baker because she's
Oh.
the coolest. And I wouldn't be, the book wouldn't be here without Amy Baker. So can we toast her too? And let me see your beard one more time because I'm jealous.
Nice and cold. Nice and cold. And it's not apple juice. Amy Baker. Amy Baker.
Both Lillian and I, we're West Coast, so we're still like, we're both going running and we got a lot of important stuff to do before we can
Yeah.
drink a beer.
Yeah,
We
okay.
got more.
Oh,
Yeah.
whatever. Come on.
We got book deals to do and, you know.
Yeah, a whole day.
That's okay. That's all right. Well, it's fine. Listen, just catch up later. It's only 3 hours later, so let us know when you guys decide to. No, but to your point, well taken. Amy Baker, publisher, your editor, and staunch supporter.
Yeah, she's cool.
She's cool. Amy
Yeah.
Baker is cool, and so here's to her as well. And
Yeah.
here's to all of you librarians for watching
Yeah.
and participating.
And I hope COVID ends and I can come visit all the libraries because it's one of my favorite things to do is to go just walk into any library. It feels like you're walking into, for me, it's like my kind of church. I just feel better about myself. I always feel when I go into a library, I always feel like I'm a better person. Like, it's like you feel like you're just a little bit, you're helping yourself going into a library. They just feel like you feel like I'm not a bad guy. I'm going to a library and libraries are like safe and you can read and learn. I don't know. I dig them. So they're my kind of church. So thank you for being librarians.
I wish you lots of success, Willy Vlautin.
Oh, thank you. And have fun at San Pedro. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for this amazing book. Thank you for all your amazing books.
Oh, and hopefully I'll see you in Seattle sometime.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for answering our questions. This was great.
Oh, sure. And good luck. I hope you find the school bus.
Thank you.
Give you a new lawn.
Yes, we got to get some sod over to Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, take good care, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. And Willie, thanks for writing. And take good care, everyone.
Nice. And being an
Bye.
MC, you really should open up a little nightclub. You can do it in Portland, Oregon, and I'll go and, I'll sit in the audience every night.
Sweet. I might even get a tattoo and a top hat. Bye, everyone. So, Lainey, can you share the next Tuesday? Quickly, shout out a little next Tuesday. Marianne O'Hara, author of Little Matches, will be joining us in conversation about her memoir. That's next Tuesday at 2:00. Marianne O'Hara, Little Matches. So if you can join us, please do. And in the meantime, read some Willy Vlautin, and you will be enveloped in great writings, fabulous characters, and stories that will never leave your heart. So there you go. And there's next Tuesday. And I think that's it. Thank you again, everyone. Thanks,
Thank
Willie.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.